All right, and so I'm going to call us to order at 6 o'clock. Chris, you're ready to go on the minutes?
I am.
Okay, thank you. All right. There is one addition to the agenda, and it is under the consent agenda. It is item C, and it is mandatory policy. Patrick, I don't have the note about the title. Oh, it's the mandatory policy.
It's special education.
Okay.
I was going to pull up the exact name, but you're ahead of me, Katrina.
Okay.
I just wanted to give her a little gung ho.
All right. So that will be added under the consent agenda. It's mandatory, so it's required. All right. So moving on to the consent agenda.
Are you doing public comment first, Dawn?
Sorry. Skipped right over it. Is there public comment at this time? Herb, your hand's been up. Do you have something?
Yes.
Okay.
I put my hand up ahead of time.
Oh.
You hear me okay, right?
Yes, we can.
So thanks for listening to me. I have a statement to make on behalf of the Starksboro Save Our Schools Committee. It's a statement. We're not speaking for the town or the select board. They've been consulted, but operationally, public meetings, we're not speaking for them. And in any event, we're going to do things by consensus in our town. And so we're going to have to meet with them. But the statement is this: last evening at the Murder Study Committee, we made another statement. And basically what we said was the future of Robinson School is very much in jeopardy depending on the decisions that the Murder Study Committee makes. There have been members of that committee who have urged the committee to put in their articles of association provisions that will guarantee that local and elementary school program K through 6 will not be closed, repurposed, or otherwise terminated for grades, K through 6 without a vote of the town. And what we told them was that we are under increasing timeline pressures in terms of making a decision about whether to withdraw from the district. So that if they thought, they could just, we're not trying to impose ultimatums. We just try to, you just got to understand, if we're going to withdraw, we have to file a petition fairly soon in order to meet deadlines and for votes to take place before the Merger Study Committee's planned vote in November. And so we talked about that in terms of, time's running short. We've already started, preliminary analysis, not knowing, what the Merger Study Committee is going to do. Frankly, haven't had any response from the Merger Study Committee on this issue, despite, a lot of, the MAUSD board members have been really, trying to press the issue and really just haven't gotten too much headway. So we're trying to impress on them that that could happen sooner rather than later. And what we all want to say to you folks is kind of a little bit similar. I mean, obviously, we thank the board, the MAUSD board, very much for reaffirming that towns had a right to vote before their school would be closed. We have differences about the 6th grade and all that, but we still really do appreciate that. But we're not, from our perspective, we're not out of the woods. The Merger Study Committee, which seems, pretty much on a track to merge, hasn't really given any sort of positive consideration to this issue around a vote before closing. And frankly, the comments that we heard last night were not promising at all. So what we're asking this board is to take whatever actions are necessary to convince the Merger Study Committee that they really need to do this. They really need to include in their articles of association these assurances that we've been seeking. And I think that you folks have recognized. I know that, under the law, they have their own they have their own jurisdiction. They report not to you folks. They are an entity unto themselves, and eventually, whatever recommendation they're going to make, or if it's for a merger anyway, it's going to go to the state and won't go through you folks. However, I think it's pretty clear to me that this board has, if they choose to use it, has a lot of influence over the Merger Study Committee. We want you to impress on the Merger Study Committee how important this is for you as a mandate board, and frankly, how important it is if you want to see a successful merger. As Nate Levinson said in his report, he observed the community sentiment. And if a merger is really going to happen, it's going to have to, be voted on. And this would remove, I think, at least one issue. So for all those reasons, I urge you, this board, to take whatever actions are necessary and appropriate to communicate with the Merger Study Committee and convince them that they really need to include those articles in their articles of association, because if we don't, we have a time limit, 30 days plus or minus, we're going to have to get rolling on a withdrawal, or we'll lose our opportunity. So that's the issue. If we had, forever and a day, we wouldn't be making this statement to you and putting you on the spot here. I'm sorry that we're doing that. But we don't have any choice in the matter. I'm happy if anybody wants any clarification about that. I'm in the book. Anybody can call anytime. But I wanted to make sure that you folks were aware of what our situation was and the timeline pressures we were under and what we were prepared to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Herb. Coco.
Hello, good evening, everybody. My comment tonight is in relation to tonight's agenda. I know that the board's going to be discussing Levinson's report, and I had an earlier email exchange with Dawn in which she shared with me that those are going to be done in breakout groups that the public will not be participating in or invited to listen into. And I just wanted to, kindly raise the question of, is that in accordance with open meeting law? And would the board reconsider allowing the public to listen into those breakout sessions? I know it can be a little clunky on Zoom and we're all trying to figure out how to operate virtually, but I do think it's really important that the public be included and able to listen to those discussions in real time and not just read a minutes or a report of that conversation. So I hope the board will consider a discussion before moving forward with tonight's agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. And Nancy.
Thanks. I'm speaking to follow up a bit on what Herb had to say. And what I really want the board to know is that in the wake of Nate Levinson's report, and as I look at your agenda tonight, and as you go forward thinking about the process, we are, the Starksboro Save Our Schools Committee is very excited and encouraged by all the options that were laid out in the report, by the process that was used in that to create that analysis, and by what we're hearing from you about where you might be headed going forward in order to come to a resolution about ways to proceed that will work in both solving the financial problem and also doing so in a way that will promote equity and expand opportunities for kids. So I want to start by saying we're really excited about that. At the same time, we're coming to you tonight because we really, really need your help. We in Starksboro don't want to withdraw from the district. We think there's great value and opportunity in us all staying together. But the problem for us is this timeline, given the statutory timeline for withdrawal, given the Merger Study Committee's timeline around thinking that they will, if they make a recommendation to merge, they'll be doing it in November. And thinking about the statutory questions that are very real around whether a town can withdraw from a district once it has consolidated with another district. There are some real legal questions about whether that's even possible. So from our point of view, we have to go forward with a withdrawal process beginning really soon, unless the Merger Study Committee makes a decision such as this board has made, affirming a town's right to vote before its elementary school would be closed. So we're coming to you tonight because we really need your help. And we want you to please approach the Merger Study Committee and ask them to provide a similar assurance to the insurance that you have provided. Because if they don't do that, we're going to have to go through with beginning a withdrawal process. And what we'd much rather do is applaud the work you're about to embark on in figuring out how to move forward from the information that Nate has given you. We'd like to participate in any way that we can in helping to use that work to find a satisfactory resolution that will help mend the district and help the whole district go forward. And so we really need your help in order to make that happen. And we need it really soon. The Merger Study Committee will be meeting again next at the beginning of March. And we're hoping that you can work with them, work with the chairs to help them come to agreement about an assurance as soon after the beginning of March as possible. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Nancy. Sandy, I see your hand up, but this really isn't the time for board members to make comments during public comment time. So I'd like to ask you to wait. This is per the guidance the VSBA has been giving us. This is not the time for a board member to be in the comments section. So
if I want to make a comment that isn't on the agenda, just with regard to Merger Study Committee as a citizen, I can't make that comment.
Well, right now you're at the board table. So that, I mean, I sent everybody the guidance from the VSBA around that, and they were pretty clear about the guidance being that this is not a time for board members to maybe making comments.
Okay, maybe I'll just be able to bring it up in other business. We'll see.
We have it coming up on a future agenda in February to talk about the merger study. So that may be the perfect place for your comments in that discussion. Any other public comment? Okay. All right, moving to the consent agenda.
So Don, as you know, I wanted to make a motion to pull the minutes from 125.
Okay.
In order to correct part 5D.
Okay, so there's a motion from Steve to pull the minutes for correction. Is there a second?
Second, Krista.
Okay. All right. Steve, do you want to clarify your correction?
Yeah, it's just that I think the conversation got a little bit misconstrued. I was not thinking that the financial questionnaire ought to be revised by the AOE or by the auditors. I was just suggesting that we might have some kind of backup documentation or sort of an instruction sheet or a cheat sheet that gave us some background as to what the appropriate answers to those questions were. And I think Floyd and Patrick offered to maybe provide a little guidance on that. And I just wanted to kind of correct that statement in the minutes.
Dave, did you have a comment about the minutes?
Yes, as long as we're talking about the minutes, when they are posted, could they be changed from unapproved to approved? Should they be approved in tonight's meeting? Thank you.
Right. Does anybody else have any questions or concerns about Steve's correction? Sandy, is your hand up from before, or is that a new hand? Okay. All right, let me just make sure. All right. So I forwarded along your email, Steve, so that Chris could see that what your comments were.
Yeah.
Do you want her to read it back, or?
Whatever the process ought to be. I think I just said essentially what I wrote in the email.
Okay. All right. Okay. So can we all right, so we did pull them. Any further discussion on pulling them? Okay.
Do we need to vote to pull them?
Well, we didn't vote, so I assume because we talked about it. If you want to give a thumbs up if you were all right. Sorry, I'm a little off my game today. It's a long day.
So we need to vote
Vote to pull
for
them.
Steve's motion. Yeah. Okay.
Well, it's vote to pull them. So just
Right.
give a thumb up that you're all right pulling them. All right. Andrew, you all right with it? Rob? Okay. All right. Looks like that passed. All right. Now, so we can put them back in with the changes and approve the consent agenda as a whole with the new item, added the policy language around special education.
Could I guess Krista has it in writing. Could she read what the new minutes are going to say?
Actually, it was Chris Pearsall who got it, but let me get Steve's message here.
Yeah, I guess I'm not sure how clear I was about how I wanted the minutes to then.
Yeah. So I believe what it's going to read is Steve noted that the questionnaire should come with a little background information on the questions, maybe a cheat sheet, so the board can gauge if the response is adequate or if they need more information or if further action is needed from the superintendent.
That's fine.
Okay. Oops, I got to get back to you guys. Okay. All right. So now back to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda with the 3 items?
So moved, Krista.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second, Kristen.
Thank you, Kristen. All right. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda with the correction to the minutes, please, and the addition of the C, please say aye.
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 Thumbs up. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. All right, the motion passes. Okay. All right, now on to board management and governance. Discussion around concerning the reactions to New Solutions K-12 presentation and report. So as I said, outlined in the chair notes, we're going to start with a little self-reflection on the report And then move to our peer-to-peer groups and go into breakout rooms. So Krista is helped design this portion of the session. So I'll have her come on in and help out.
Sure. So I'll share what we were thinking, and if folks agree that this works and can provide transparency for the public that's here, addressing Coco's earlier comment, that's great. If folks want to propose a different approach, we can talk about that too. But what I want to do is just share my screen to show you what you should have received in your email, which is a link to a Jamboard. And so the way this works, if you haven't used it before, is that we're going to put you into your groups and using breakout rooms, like Don said, and each group will have a page of the Jamboard to capture their thoughts. And then, and the way you do that is 1, 2, 3, fourth icon down are these sticky notes. And so what you should do in your pair is decide who's going to be the note taker and capture your thinking. And then that person can write in their note and save it, and then it appears. And then you can write another one in. Sorry, I have no creative ideas right now. But anyway, so these notes, these reflections and comments will all be here. And then when we come back together, each group is going to report out on this so we can all hear each other's thinking. And then we're going to come together and try to capture the big picture ideas on this final slide. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out how to get to it without having to go through each individual pane, but okay, so this is the final slide where as a group, when we're out of our breakout groups, we'll do a similar thing, but with these guiding questions. So again, you'll be with your partner. Someone will take notes on your particular screen using sticky notes. And then when we come back together, you'll share to the full group. And then we'll go through this process as a full group to capture some of the themes we heard. And this document will be linked to our minutes as well. So that's how we plan to do this. I'm going to just stop sharing for a second so I can see people's faces. Thumbs up if you think that this process will work. Everybody okay with at least trying it? Does anyone have any questions or concerns or want to offer any other suggestions? Liz?
It seems to me like our thoughts will all be captured, right? And we'll be able to share them. And is this something that we'll be able to link to the document or the notes? So it'll all be public, everything that we do. It'll just be that more of us will get a chance to, or everybody will get a chance to have input, right? In a little time considerate way. So it still feels very public to me.
Rob?
Yeah, I mean, I don't agree necessarily with Liz, because I don't think we'll be typing as much as we're talking, and I don't know. I mean, I appreciate this opportunity to just sort of connect with another board member after self-reflecting and stuff like that. So, you know, I just want to make sure we're crossing our T's and dotting our I's in regards to. I mean, I feel like it's sort of uncharted territory using Zoom in the public sphere for a public meeting. So I don't know. I'm okay with it, but I don't want to get in trouble at the same time, I guess.
Steve?
Yeah, so I sort of liken this to when we try to do this even in large cafeteria. although the public can sort of scooch a chair over to one group or another, they can't necessarily hear everybody in these little small breakouts. So it's not as though we're broadcasting these little breakouts to, the whole group. I do think the fact that we come back together and review all of these notes in kind of a group setting and discuss the next steps, that for the most part, the gist of the board's conversation and more importantly, the direction they feel they're going to take this conversation is going to be heard by the wider group, even though there may be a little pre-work to kind of get people's thoughts together.
Sandy?
Thanks, Krista. I really like this board concept. So I want to thank you for putting that together. I'm wondering if the public is able to access the board as we're in our groups and see what sticky notes come up as we take notes. I don't know if that's possible or not to provide a link like that, or if it creates problems, with other people involved. But I was just wondering, I'm trying to figure out a way that maybe to some extent the public can see what each of the groups is doing. It may be too complicated.
I think they'll see that when we come back. So when each group shares, we'll put the screen up. So for group 1, you can see all group 1 sticky notes, group 2, and so on.
Okay, great.
Kristen?
Yeah, I think we're doing the best we can under terrible circumstances. So I appreciate the effort, and I think we just need to all take risks and just go for it. Thank you.
Also, I'll just say that this process, well, not quite the same, but I know the Merger Study Committee has had a couple of different meetings where they've broken into smaller groups and then come back as a whole to share. So, and I think a lot of people participate virtually. So that was what was in my mind when I was doing this. And I thought the Jamboard would provide the most transparent way for us to still do that. So I see Nancy and Coco's hands up. So we're not in public comments. I don't know how you want to proceed, Don.
I'd like, I guess, to make sure that we haven't heard from a few board members, and I just want to reach out to some who have been a little quieter. Kevin and Andrew, we haven't heard anything from you. And Brad.
Go ahead, Kevin. I'm sorry. I think it's adequate. I think at the end, with the recap, those are pretty much the actionable things, if you will, that will come out of the discussion. So maybe it's not the most ideal thing of having in person that people can walk around, but having, we're at where we're at with this. So I'm okay with it.
Andrew?
I think I just echo what Kevin said. It's not a perfect situation, but we're doing the best we can.
Yeah, one other thing I just wanted to say is we're going to observe the same process when we meet with the staff in a little bit, which is supposed to be at 7. So we should probably move along so that we can have that important conversation as well.
All right, Brad, we'll hear from you.
Yeah, I guess I more or less echo what Rob said. I mean, I just don't know. I appreciate the opportunity, and thanks, Krista, for trying to put this together. And I sort of think along the lines of those of you who say that we're in an imperfect situation. We have to do something. Having said that, I'm very sensitive to Coco's point that we want to make sure that anything that transpires in the small group discussions needs to be conveyed and be made available to our constituents.
Dave.
So I'm okay with it, but I have a question about how it works. I got the thing on my phone, and I loaded it and I opened it up. Is that what we're going to do, or are we going to do this somehow through Zoom? Can you?
You're going to do it on the Jamboard, Dave, and you'll have, I think you're with Kristen and Don. And so the three of you together will capture your thinking. One of you can put it on the actual page. And then when you come back, you'll be able to share it with everybody. So if you're seeing it on your phone and that's tricky, you might want to have somebody with a computer to do that.
Well, but it's not on Zoom that we do this. I go to the app and
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But you are going to put us in a breakout room, right, Chris?
Correct. Yeah.
All right. So we're going to have 5 minutes of self-reflection, 5 minutes to tell your partner, and then we're coming back. So not long conversations, or this is really get your thoughts organized and then get your thoughts on the Jamboard. Okay. All right, Krista, you want to lead us in, I guess?
While people are in self-reflection mode, I'm going to try to figure out how to get everybody in their rooms. And so you might get moved into
Can you
it.
invite the public into some of the breakout rooms, please? Just like we did in the gym. Instead of leaving us in Zoom, that we are included in the breakout rooms.
So I guess that's a question for the full board. I mean, I thought we just sort of talked through that, but I definitely don't want this to become a thing. So, I guess maybe if people are okay with that, it's just going to take me a little bit longer to assign people to different rooms. But this is, I guess it's up to the will of the group.
Kevin's got his hand up.
Oh, I don't know.
Where'd he go? Kevin?
So I guess my question would be, as the public comes into these breakout rooms, they're there to observe, not to participate, or is there a different strategy?
Observe.
Brad has his hand up.
Yeah, I guess there's no real downside to having community members just to observe, the breakout rooms. Might be a little bit more complicated technologically, but what's the downside?
Okay, so I'm going to send folks over, and then I'll see if I can add in the remaining people and just sort of intersperse people into each other of the groups. Okay, well, let's start with group one, which was Liz and I.
Yeah, I think we were in your notes.
Gosh, sorry. I'm having a hard time with the zooming. Oh, there we go. Okay. Liz, can you identify some of or if we're all here together, I suppose we could just read off what some of the notes are.
Yeah.
That might be the easiest. So I'm going to do that if that works for everybody. So some of the things folks shared, looking forward to understanding what extreme sister schools would look like. Report was promising, excited about being bold, thoughtful, and humane, thinking about potential options. It was positive, hopeful, and encouraging. More clear choices while giving data about ideas like a roadmap. I don't know if I can move it around that well. Let's see. Okay, struck by a graph of elementary population and the problems at the middle and high school level. That's a lot of ours. Is that all our stuff? Or is there another group in here too? Don, your group is in here?
Our group is in here too.
Okay, do you want to share what some of your thoughts were?
It was promising. the positive, hopeful, and clear paths are encouraging more clear choices and while giving data about ideas, seem like a roadmap, more to work with reasons for options, you know, that explanation of why this would work or whatever. Struck by the graph of the elementary population staying about the same and the problems at the high school, and that the connection between, if you want to keep this the elementary schools, you know, working with the middle school problem in mind. That one's first reactions were positive, and it was forward linking. And then it looks like there's someone, I don't know, the rest your comments?
No.
Okay, so there
How
must
about
be a
let's-
third group in here.
Were you group 2, Don?
Yes, I think that's what we were.
Okay. Let's see. Who was in group 3?
Looks like Sandy. Oh, you're muted,
Were
Sandy.
any of your comments on this page or on another frame?
Ours are on,
I don't see
are you
ours.
on page 3? Sorry, I have the Jamboard still open, so it's confusing.
There we
me.
go. This is you guys?
It is.
Okay.
Brad,
Do
do
you
you
wanna
want me
walk
to
us through?
summarize?
Yeah,
Yeah, sure,
that'd be
go ahead.
great.
And then you want to, because I was writing the notes, so it's one of those,
Yeah,
trying to
go
get
ahead.
it. So Brad spoke first about his thoughts. Let's see, I want to start with, sorry, I apologize. It didn't show up in the same way. I think Brad felt heartened as well about the process, but and you could speak also, Brad. I'm sorry, I don't know, it looks different than what I just had a second ago, but he did note that, and concerns was that there seemed to be a disconnect between some of the assumptions and the data. He thinks the cost effective mindset is a terrific idea. I was of the same, that in theory, it sounds like a great idea. I think really the next steps, like what does that mean in practice, is sort of the question. And I commented that I did see that, you know, on the agenda, our action item to direct the superintendent on those next steps, I think is a good, helpful next step. Brad and I both had impressions regarding the intersection between the merger study committee and what MAUSD is doing. Brad felt that that Nate's report was sort of grafted on some ideas of the merger study committee without, I think, fully understanding what work they were doing. And on a finer note, there were comments about transportation and how when he consulted with the transportation person, it seems like they could work that out. But it sounds like, from Brad's impression from merger study committee, you know, there were some serious problems for busing and transportation. So making sure we're working from the same information. I was really struck by the demographic information as well. It was very enlightening to see the development of K-6 information in the next 5 years and what potential will happen to middle school, high school. I thought it was really helpful for my thinking, because it made me realize that the work we do can really treat K through 6 or, you know, elementary level in one way, and then really look at the needs of middle school and high school, and that they hopefully their needs can dovetail together, but we may have different approaches. So I thought that was interesting. Some concerns I had was that in order to really prioritize, or to keep honest with the community, to give an input with priorities of keeping the schools, my impression was that was linked very strongly with what we do in terms of cost effectiveness at the middle and high school. Like, they really both have to be worked on. Hopefully maybe we can do it in phases and not have to do everything at once, but it seemed like there needed to be a bigger plan for both K through 6 and then middle school, high school. And that's hopefully there'll be flexibility with the phased approach. And lastly, I just felt, my first impression, I was pretty overwhelmed. I was heartened by all the information, but as a board member, it was a lot to take in and sort through. So this was helpful.
Thanks, Sandy.
Yeah, just to add one little thing on the phased approach, I think that's a really helpful part of the report because it gives us a little bit of flexibility, over time with respect to not really knowing, we don't have all the answers, and we can't predict the future, but by phasing the reforms or the changes in the system, it gives us a lot of flexibility. So I was really heartened by that.
Okay. Group 4, who was that?
That was Rob and I.
Okay. Did you guys go on to, let me see. Is this you guys?
That's us, yeah.
Okay. Do one or both of you want to do a quick summary on your thinking?
I typed the notes. I was trying to condense what Rob was saying into sticky notes. So maybe Rob can explain some of his thoughts.
Sorry, I got my Zoom views all mixed up and I couldn't even see the sticky notes.
Can you see now?
Yeah, sorry. Andrew, I did do a lot of talking. I apologize.
Yes, sir. It's all right.
I guess it's great to see that there are a lot of ways we can save money. I think taking a phased approach is probably the right path forward. However, a phased approach, when you look at what's happening in the merger study committee, I see some tension there because the merger study committee is really moving forward after last night's meeting, at least what I heard, and for November / into the following fiscal year, momentum building for that. So I know that there's cost savings spoken to in regards to the middle and high school with the merger, but it seems right now that that's focused more on governance. They even spoke to last night of talking that it could be 2 high schools and 2 middle schools. That's up for that next board to decide. So that doesn't necessarily align with this report. But I also think there's a big decision, and it was more in Nate's presentation regarding sort of the path of 2 consolidated elementary schools or 5 elementary schools with a cost-effective mindset. And I think I really lean, and I'd love to see the board lean on long-term facilities planning for us. Let's focus on those 5 elementary schools with a cost-effective mindset, and then find ways to really create more efficiencies so that we can provide better opportunity for all of our students, but especially at the middle and high school, maybe thinking about even sister schools with Addison Northwest. But I do get concerned with trying to just start our planning here and have it all just sort of maybe possibly melt away in a 1.5 years time, with us just sort of trying to make progressive strides for our students. So that's sort of where I'm at.
Thanks, Rob. Andrew, do you want to add anything to that?
The only other thought I had that I didn't get down on a sticky note time-wise was Nate had mentioned something about the cost effectiveness mindset, basically that you have folks wearing multiple hats, and that some teachers would love to have a leadership role without actually stepping into a leadership role. So the potential to have some of that without losing their role as a classroom teacher. So I think that's the positive side to it. I was kind of curious about whether that would also be unattractive to some folks because they would feel like they were a jack of all trades, a master of none. If you're a principal, but you're also doing some coaching, or you're a teacher plus a principal or whatever. So I guess the only way to know that is to hear from our faculty and administrators about how that would feel. And also when we've talked about at the board level, attracting candidates to the district, how attractive or not attractive that is to potential candidates.
Thank you. Okay, who was group 5?
That was Kevin and Kevin and me.
Yep. Okay.
So Kevin and I talked a little bit about the 6th grade move to the middle school. Seems like lots of pros, but also could change the environment at the elementary school pretty drastically with the further reduction in the number of classes that are used. But there are some strong advantages noted in the report as well. We thought overall the report was well done, very impartial, and lots of useful information. There are, some definite suggestions that seem to be feasible that we can achieve, and probably in some short order with some with a phased approach. There were some tools that seemed to be kind of no-brainers to add to our toolbox. Kevin had some concerns with bounded autonomy and didn't want to have sort of fragmented curriculum amongst the different schools, wanted there to be definitely a strong curriculum direction from the top. And Kevin also liked the weighted student funding, sort of being able to allocate resources across the district, equitably, and deal with things in sort of an impartial way of allocating the amount of budget allocated to each school. I voiced a little bit of concern that Andrew just mentioned about the ability of this of teachers and principals to take on work that other folks are currently working full time at, while people are already under a little bit of stress, and that moving to that people wearing multiple hats kind of world is going to take some time and some buy-in, and making sure that everybody's not kind of overloaded when that happens. And I sort of wrote this sticky and was going to explain it when we got unzoomed. Just that I do like the merger with Addison Northwest. I always have. I think there's lots of advantages to it. But obviously making sure that the town closure thing is maintained in terms of the vote, so that it doesn't become a political stumbling block to getting any advantage out of the exercise. Kevin, if you want to add to any of that.
No, I think you covered it very well.
Okay, and we have one more group, group 6, which maybe this group put their stuff on. Who is in group 6? Let's see, Kristen, Dave.
Ours already got done.
Yeah,
Ours was the first one.
Okay, all right. Was there anything here that you wanted to expand on or didn't get a chance to share?
I think we had a couple of next steps that we didn't get. I can't quite see them.
Okay.
Next steps. Next steps. Look at what moving the 6th grade to the middle school, waiting on the Lincoln vote, merger study committee, adding language about town vote to put that to rest. And then next steps, vote down exit of Lincoln on town meeting day. I'd like to see the board take a position against them leaving. There was one, more information on the cost-effective mindset and the bounded autonomy.
Okay. Did you put some of those on the last? I just want to move to the, no, okay.
No.
Okay, so here's where we are, but it's 7:08, and I'm just wondering, Dawn, because we have folks here for a particular time period that are guests, if the board, I'm going to just stop sharing for a minute because I can't see anybody. There we go. If the board thinks it might be a good idea to pause, have our conversation with the staff, because I suspect we have 2 action items related to this that are probably going to take more conversation. And so I'm thinking we might want to shift to the staff conversation and then come back, but I don't know what other people think. I'm seeing some heads and nods and thumbs.
I think it's good to be respectful of people's time and that we should do
I
that
agree.
immediately.
Yeah. Okay.
Right, so
Everybody else good with that? Okay.
All right, so we'll pause on that and skip down to our discussion around staff linkage. Okay. All right. So we think it's going to take about a half an hour, and I explained
an hour and a half.
Sorry, hour and a half. And I sort of explained in the chair notes about the outline process, and Krista has another process for this one. So I guess let's see when we're gonna. Okay, so let me find, where's Elizabeth? Oh,
right here.
Oh, okay. Now there you go. All right. So Elizabeth and I, we're going to just take a couple of minutes to briefly talk about the purpose of this meeting. And then Krista will loop us into the process again at another point. So Elizabeth, if you'd like to go first.
Okay, thank you very much. So what I just wanted to say, I just have some comments, is that something that since I've been in the role as co-president of the association, that there's been conversation about with Patrick and among staff, is just how much we would appreciate an avenue for conversation with the school board. And so I just want to say that we're happy that we're at this place and that we're getting closer to that point. And I also just wanted to say that the idea of having this meeting, which is kind of a pre-meeting, for us to decide on structure and, some agreements between the staff and the school board about how these conversations would play out. I think that was a great idea, so that we can all really feel like, we understand where we're at and kind of the approach we're taking. So we very much appreciate that we're at this point. Thank you very much.
Okay, so thanks everybody for joining us. I did have a little story, but in the essence of time, I'm going to skip the little story, but it was about courage and conviction. And I do recognize that at times it might seem like our governance structure has limitations. And so I'm really hoping that this work together will be about learning ways to work together within our process. And I hope this dialogue helps us find some common interests. And I hope tonight we take the time to notice each other's point of view and to understand a bit more about each other and listen to each other. I hope that when we end tonight, that we've raised our understanding of each other, and I hope that we all leave with some new perspectives. And I thank you all for joining us. Before we get started, we leaned on the norms that Sue McCormick used in some of her work process, and I just want to remind everybody about those norms as we begin this dialogue. So all ideas get a fair hearing. Each person gets a chance to talk. Speak for yourself. Don't speak for your group. If you feel offended by what someone says, say so and say why. It's okay to disagree, but don't make it personal. And personal stories that you share and it won't be shared outside the group unless we all say it's okay. So those are what Sue used, and they were very helpful in our group processes with Sue. So we thought we'd bring them back out again. Krista, you want to take us through the process again? And
yeah, sorry, I just need one more minute to get our breakout room set up, and then just 1 minute. And it looks like, Elizabeth, maybe there are a couple of folks that are not here, or at least that I haven't seen come up yet. Andrea, Murnane, and Cheryl, I don't think I've seen.
You know what, Krista, I do know that Andrea is not attending. She did send me a note. I don't know about Cheryl, but I would say that if she isn't, I'll look too. If she isn't, Cheryl, are you here? She's
I'm not
here,
seeing
then I think
her.
we just go ahead with without.
Okay, so I'm almost done, and we might have rooms with some fewer people than others, but there should be at least one board member and one staff member in each room. So almost there. Thanks.
So I can just go through the basic starts. Like when you get in your group, introduce yourselves, you know, the name and your role in the district. Make sure each person in your group has a chance to speak, and be sure at the beginning to assign someone to capture the thoughts on the sticky notes in the Jamboard. And as we learned before, try to pick the correct page for your group. So group 1 will get page 1 and 2 and 2.
Is there a new Jam? Is there a new Jam?
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
So if you weren't here for our awkward fumbling earlier with our first Jamboard experience, you get to see it for the first time, or maybe you get to watch us fumble through it again. So I'm going to share my screen so we can look at it together. And then I think what we're going to do is just email it to one member of each group. And that way, that person will be the person who captures the notes. So we have one here for this conversation. And let's see. Okay, so there are 7 groups, and each group has their own page. And these are our questions. And depending on whether you're a board member or a staff member, your perspective is going to be a little bit different, but generally speaking, what the goal should be of these conversations is the first question. What you hope to share with one another and want to hear from one another is the second question. And then what could this ongoing dialogue together look like? And then you'll be capturing your thoughts, again, using these little sticky notes here that are the 4th icon down. And you just click on it, add your note, and then press save, and it will appear. And you can move it wherever you'd like to move it. And then when we come back together at the end, we will share what each group had to talk about, and then try to move into our next steps. And as a group, contemplate these questions. And at that point, I think we'll ask for some help, maybe from a staff member, to help us capture these notes as we go through. We're going to have more time, so hopefully everyone's seen our agenda. And so we'll have ideally about 10 minutes per question. And we'll try, I'll try to send a little nudge when we're getting close to needing to come back to the main group, where we'll have another 25 minutes or so to report in, and then time to talk about next steps. So hopefully it won't feel too rushed. But I think, like you said, Elizabeth, is a starting point. It's a great place to start. So we're all really looking forward to the conversation. Are we all back? I think we might all be back. Yeah, so let's see. So we have our stuff captured, but I don't know, should we just go group by group and I can pull it up, but people can just share how it went, or what do we think?
You know, Krista, when the way that when I was here earlier, the way you did go group by group seemed to be a nice chance just to see different groups' ideas. And it seemed like maybe people on their own could, if there's something that really jumps out at them, maybe just try to hang on to that. Because I know you and I have talked about that. I mean, there is 20 minutes allotted for next steps, but we did talk about how taking all this information, that's always the tricky part. But yeah, I mean, I thought there was value in how I observed you did the last one, where you actually kind of went through and looked at them for a little bit.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to share my
That's just
screen.
my opinion. Some things.
And we'll go with that because I think that sounds like it makes good sense. So hopefully, can you tell me, Elizabeth, can you see this group one?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay. All right. So Liz and I were in this group with Brent. Poor Brent was the only staff member in this group. I don't know how it happened. So he, had to be the voice of the whole organization. Anyway, who wants to start sharing what we talked about?
I can start for our group, and I'm sorry I cut off Aaron at the end, but so if Aaron has anything to add, thoughts, that would be great too. We thought about how this could work and maybe quarterly timing, and we have a list of topics: MTSS, SST, EST, 504, special ed, coaching model, ways to maintain open communication between teachers and the school board, and not just the association. And then we started getting into topics, actually. So and just thinking about how, when we do choose a topic, how to make sure that we have broad representation across the organization. So for instance, MTSS came up, and ideas about flowcharts and knowing who to reach out to and what is a threshold for referrals. I mean, some really specific information about how to utilize staff for intervention work and to support each other, and that Nate's proposal was helpful in the ideas of streamlining services and cost savings by empowering teachers with a leadership role. So and then just started digging in a little bit, and we recognize that the value in connecting with and understanding what's going on at school, and also recognize that there are the different roles, and looking and just I think it's important to be clear about that in the beginning, but valuing the communication, even if it's a bigger discussion about, and honestly involves our community as well, a bigger discussion about how things are going to, what they look like and how they might shift. If anybody obviously has anything else, please add.
Do you want to add anything to that, Brent or Aaron?
No, I think you did a really good job of presenting our conversation. Thanks, Liz.
Okay, I'm going to go to group 2. Also, Elizabeth, I can't see my agenda, but if you could just remind me when we're going to shift to the big group conversation so I can keep an eye on time.
Okay, so right now we're just reporting to the large group. So we have until 8:10 for that. Is that correct?
Yeah,
right?
that's
Where
right.
we're okay. So we have about 20 minutes left. So we have 7 groups, correct?
I don't know that we actually ended up with 7.
Okay, so maybe 6. So I'll just try to be aware that every group has maybe 3 minutes or something like that, and then try to move along. Okay,
great. Okay, so group 2. Would anyone from that group like to start?
Sorry for these scratches. I was doing it on my phone and I figured it out sort of, but
I cleaned it up for you, Kristen.
Thank you. Like I said, it was on my phone. Do any of the staff want to start, or do you want me to?
Kristen, I'd be willing to make a comment if I could, just to
Sure,
frame
Al, please do. Please do.
Yeah. So I think that there is a general agreement and appreciation by all members of our group that, on the one hand, we want to respect the appropriate role for administration in this thing. We last thing in the world we want to do is propose. I think Dave used the word micromanagement. We certainly don't want to be we don't want the board to be micromanaging and subverting the appropriate role of administration. On the other hand, we felt strongly, and I think everybody agreed, that it's important that the board be well informed about what's actually happening, what's going on. And being well informed certainly has to be defined, but a lot of that could just be being present in the schools periodically, speaking to staff informally, visiting, observing, and so forth. It should be possible to set up, I think the tenor of our conversation was, a way for the board to be fully informed about what's going on without then also violating, the appropriate role of the administration in doing their job. So it seems like finding that golden mean, finding that right balance between the board being fully aware of what's going on, but at the same time still practicing the appropriate, keeping the appropriate distance, I guess, in allowing the administration to do the job it's supposed to do. Thank you.
Does anyone from that group want to add anything?
I think Jen really pointed out that, she's worked at 2 of the schools, so she had a good perspective that the climate and culture of each school has valuable things to offer and celebrate. And she also talked about how, parents haven't been able to be, we were talking about parents haven't been able to be in the schools for 2 years, board members haven't, and that it's valuable for especially kindergarten 1-2 parents, or all parents, to be able to be involved and come in and bring stuff for Valentine's Day or whatever. And so that has been lost, and how to work on that too. But again, what's the appropriate role for the board between being totally hands-off and over-involved? And I think we also talked about how getting information is sometimes just for getting information. We would still have a chain of command, and only some of the information will just be to have, and some would be to possibly take action on. So, and where would the triage of that happen? And we did not get to what would that look like. We didn't have enough time.
I also just want to throw in one quick word possible change. I'm looking at the sticky notes, and it says board members go and visit schools for direct inspection. And I don't know if inspection is the right word, or observation, perhaps. And unless that was something you specifically said, Al, or Dave or Krista.
That's like a school board term that we can do direct inspection of things. That's
Okay.
a way to get information. So we could put direct inspection / observation for sure.
Yeah,
But it's
it just
kind of
it seems very rigid and kind of a little Big Brother-ish. But we were just talking about how having people in the building would be welcomed, and I think you get a lot from being around people and kind of getting the climate and the vibe of what's happening. So I just wanted to clarify that word choice. It seemed a little serious. Krista, we should probably move on to the next group.
Okay, thank you. Group 3.
I took the notes, so I'm happy to try to summarize it. I was just doing a bunch of editing. So on the first question of what should be the goal, the purpose of conversations, I think a universal agreement or consensus was communication, to really improve the communication lines from staff to board, and then also from the board, also hearing from the staff, what are things that the board is doing well, the things the board may not be doing so great, trying to be proactive in communication so that we're hearing the good and the bad, and then the board can know what's happening instead of being reactive to situations and only seeing the negatives when bad things are happening. It's better for us to see the whole picture. In terms of, we felt the 1 and 2 question were very similar, and then on the third question of what could this look like, we had there was talk about from a board perspective of how we can tweak our policy governance process, be able to interface better with staff and get input from the staff. We also, there was talk about, again, being able to hear the good things that we're proud about, that staff would like to be able to share those matters as well. There was talk about how at other institutions that the form that there will be presentation board meetings from different departments highlighting what's happening in the buildings and the schools, and more than what we're looking at, it would still be a really give an avenue for being able to share that information. The first thing that people, I think most people agreed with was the small group format, like we just did, this Jamboard, could also be a mechanism and used to help share information as well. It's a good way of getting people together and talking, and then maybe getting that information out. So maybe this vehicle is something that could be used. One of the things I thought about is, I think I'd like it to be important to have a forum where full breadth of staff in the building can communicate their concerns, their positives, all those things in a way that there isn't a chilling effect. I sometimes worry that it's hard for a teacher where you have a boss and people ahead that they may not be willing to share their thoughts because they just don't, it's too risky. And so sometimes we don't hear everybody's voices because there's concern that that's just my impression. I didn't hear that from anyone. This is purely my thought, but I think a forum that allows for the gathering of that information in a fair and free way would be, I think, helpful in this process. And anyone in the group, please add in.
Thanks, Sandy. Anyone else from group 3? Okay, I'm going to move to group 4. Is there staff member from group 4 that'll share out? Oh, sorry, I can't see everybody. Go ahead.
I was, this is Elizabeth. I was in group 4. And I'll just say a couple things, and then I think somebody else should share. But, one thing our group had an interesting conversation of is also, it was kind of like, what does the board want to hear from the staff? But we also talked about, what does the staff want to hear from the board? And this has already been touched on a little bit, but, for the staff to hear from the board about, Andrew, used the word like governance versus management, maybe was the term he used, and I think that there could be some real value in that discussion too. And just like, and how do we work within that effectively? And I think in our communication too, there was, we did get a lot into really wanting the board to really have a sense of the day-to-day in schools and how bigger picture things kind of, how they play out in the schools, and how, so that as you grapple at the board level with the bigger things, how they're felt at the classrooms and at the school level. So, but I'd like somebody else to speak from our group too, if they'd like. Does anybody else from our group want to speak?
This is Patty. I will just echo what I've heard other groups say in terms of sharing what's going well in schools, and because there's so much to celebrate. I also think that one of the things that came up was, oh, I just lost it. And I can't read the sticky notes. They're too little. We talked about so much. The logistics, I had thought it'd be nice to have somebody show up from the staff at every board meeting. And then some other ideas were sort of do it less regularly, but have them be more intentional meetings, which I think makes a lot of sense. I still would love to have a place on the agenda for every meeting, just even if it's a quick highlight from each school, just so that we can always have a place at the table. And anybody else, go ahead. If I can't.
I was in group 4. This is Rob. I see it as a great opportunity for the board to better understand how we can achieve possibly our A1 end policy, so that we can make sure each student is really reaching their full peak potential in our school district. And this is just an aside, but as formally informal as this conversation was, at least for me, I can only speak as an individual, that it was really, really nice to hear from our staff tonight. And I don't necessarily think that it has to be a super formalized thing. For me, this was very, very refreshing. So thank you for the opportunity, Elizabeth and Dawn, and for putting this together. And Krista, thank you.
Probably a good time to move to the next group.
Okay, group 5.
Dustin, you want to go ahead?
Recording in progress.
What just happened? Did I vanish or did you all vanish?
I thought I was speaking to the group. Was I speaking to the group?
No,
I thought I was speaking to the group. I think we were both speaking to no one.
And I dropped off the call.
Completely.
Okay, let me share my screen again.
I'm not sure what was heard, but I got muted in the middle.
Okay, go ahead, Dustin.
Okay. So I'm speaking again. Sorry, I'm not sure how much of what I said was heard or not. But again,
I didn't hear anything, Dustin.
Nothing.
Me either.
Me neither. I dropped out of the call. So start from the top.
Okay. Well, so I'll just thank the board for inviting us here tonight and giving us this opportunity to speak with you. A lot of what we've summarized here, I think, has been shared with other groups, so I'll try to keep it brief. But I just think it would be good to have these conversations, just to share with the board the staff's perspective on how things are going in the school building, so the school board gets a little more than just that 30,000 foot up view. You get a little more clear understanding of what's really happening in school buildings, and then hopefully then it won't be, we don't find ourselves in a situation like we did in October where something seemingly comes out of the blue that's been a problematic issue for a long time building. As far as what hope to share with the board, or the board to hear from the teachers, Kevin mentioned wanting to hear from the staff about how the staff is helping implement the new MTSS model, or ideas like how does the staff feel about certain cost-effective mindset ideas, like I don't know, job sharing, like a teacher being part-time teacher, part-time coach, those sorts of things. So hearing directly from staff about those kinds of systematic things would be valuable for the board, and staff likewise, I believe, would like to have input on those things. As far as what it could look like, we had lots of different ideas, from quarterly to semi-annually, having these meetings coincide with like budgeting cycles, so staff could report out to the board how things are going, what needs there are, before the next year's budget is built, for example, and then in the spring, share celebrations and other needs and wants and such. There was more. We talked about who to include, representatives from the, all different subject areas at the middle high school, elementary teachers from each building, specialty area teachers from sister schools, special educators, coaches, coordinators, just to hear from, just because I know just the way things, mostly the board just hears from the superintendent, sometimes building principals, really just to give the board more of a broader perspective of what's really happening in the buildings. If anybody else would like to chime in, please do. I'm sure I've missed something.
I'm going to move to the next. I'm going to move us to the next group just so we
Good
can.
idea.
Oh, wait, was that our last one? Oh, it must be. Okay.
Well, good timing, because it's
I know.
8:09.
Okay. So, so this is great, and I'm so glad. I hope it wasn't too hard to navigate the Jamboard, but I'm really glad we have all of this captured. What we hope to do now is to begin fleshing out. Sorry, I just need to move us to this screen. The themes. So what did we hear? What questions were raised? Are there any clear possible actions? And what are the next steps? So maybe we can start with what was heard, or I don't know if it needs to be that formulaic. We could just sort of take those things and people can just share their comments. I'd be happy to scribe. I can't see everybody, so maybe Elizabeth, if you could help me encourage different folks to unmute themselves and talk. Or
If people raise, I have a question, just if people raise their hand, will they then show up? Will they then like come to the, the top so I could see them to call on them, or people could just start talking?
they might, or if you have the ability to look at the participant list and keep that little sidebar open, then you should also be able to see when people have their hands up. Like I see Steve right now. He just moved up to the top.
I can watch the participant list.
Okay, great.
So
okay, do you want to start, Steve?
Yeah, so I think I heard in our group discussion, trying to be clear about the logistics and the agenda. So curious a little bit about, maybe there's a working group that from each side, including the administration, that could sort of work through what we think the agenda might want to be for each session. Maybe they're be responsible for taking feedback from, and anybody could send them suggestions for an agenda, and then they could see kind of where the wind was blowing and help create an agenda so that the agenda is focused and represents, what the broader concerns might be.
And then Elizabeth.
I don't think there was totally consensus on this, but the idea of maybe, like maybe quarterly meetings or something like that. But so it seemed like frequent enough, but also with enough time to get into things. And honestly, this idea wasn't said, but I'm just throwing it out there as the logistic thing is the idea of like that people could submit ideas to, like, oh, this is something I'd like to bring, that, if you had a small group that they could potentially, kind of decide, or try to help make decisions about, what would be on the different quarterly, the meetings or something like that. An idea.
Okay. I see Dave's hands up.
Thank you. So one of the things that the town select board does is they have the department heads each have 5 minutes at a point in every select board meeting, or once a month maybe in a select board meeting, and we could do that kind of thing for department heads in the various schools. Another idea that I thought Al put forward that really appealed to me is in our communications, we want to know what to celebrate. We also want to know what the challenges are and what might the board do to help solve those challenges.
Not seeing any more hands up.
I'm just going to jump in again. I think another idea was to sort of try to get a better working understanding from different perspectives of how, just around how to be like around policy governance and around the role of, again, I'm going to kind of use what was said in our group of governance versus management, and then just how to, make it useful for all, so that, I don't know, it's sort of like to find that balance between really getting into the detail and the nitty gritty, but also problem solving or sharing information on a broader level.
Kevin?
I'm promoting my own comment here, but I would like to see a dialogue that's strategic, kind of self-centered, being on the board, to be at a board level, if you will. I don't want to make that sound snooty or anything, but our ultimate focus is the ends policy and achieving it. And if we could align discussions along that line, I think we could do a tremendous service, at least for the board, and it may actually help the Teachers Association to collect thoughts to support that and understand the quantifications of that we were looking for.
Okay, Patty?
I thank you. I think one of the goals that I heard come through is to, if we do go through with this and we really have a more formalized dialogue with each other, that it will be hugely beneficial in creating a more positive relationship with board and staff, and for people to be heard and listened to on both ends, I think will help alleviate any potential us versus them, and will create more of a team spirit, since we really do all have the same goal in mind. Yeah, thank you.
I'm going to hop in because I kind of got cut off when I was saying this to my group, but I was thinking about a quarterly sort of dialogue and maybe with some overarching themes that we agree on, and then we, pick a month, or one of those 4 times, and pick something to discuss, and just keep working through a list of things that we agree on are kind of common interests and themes for each other. Steve.
Yeah, I mean, the agenda could be a little bit varied. It could be that there's sort of an open comment period in the beginning, just for folks to share, whatever's on their minds for a short period of time. And then there's a set agenda to tackle, known issues that folks have brought up that need to be worked through. And, there could be a report section where folks, you give a different school or a different department a chance to do a little bit of a show and tell for a portion of the meeting, and that could just rotate from meeting to meeting.
Not seeing any more hands right now, Krista.
The risk of talking too much, I'm just going to say one more thing, which does tie into some other comments, but I do think the real the value of just really opening up that communication, improving, you're just understanding, and with that idea of being proactive around just, trying to address issues that our district is facing and working on them together, and in a, and kind of maybe, being proactive, sort of getting there maybe a little bit ahead of things before they become more, feel more like problems or something that needs to be solved.
And Sandy.
Dawn, can you hear me okay? I just switched rooms. Okay.
Yes.
One of the things, this comes more from me, but it's also everyone wants to increase communication. And I was hopeful that there would be a structure that staff could collaborate with administration in a way that together they feel like they can provide a format that they agree together would be useful for the board, and that we'd be able to hear whether they're quarterly presentations or whatnot, where there's a real sense that they have a real participatory place in that's comfortable for the administration. So this is where I want the administration to be part of figuring out what makes a lot of sense, but to work collaboratively with the staff on what makes sense in communicating with the board.
Thank you.
Can we try to identify a potential or a couple of potential next steps? Do people still maybe need time to chew on it and come back together? What are folks thinking?
Seems like Sandy has her hand up, and still have 10 minutes. It might be good to see if we can get some ideas out there.
Yeah.
So, I agree with Kevin that I think it's important in this work we do in the staff linkage that we somehow do tie it to our policies. and specifically really the ends. Because I think I find that as a board member, I'm always struggling on really getting a grasp of how are we doing with regard to reaching or progressing towards our ends policies. And so next steps, I've sort of been on the outside of this, but I know that we've been working on how are we going to work our policy governance and how can we be more involved at this level. Whether I know the board is thinking about maybe setting up a policy governance committee. We're doing that work, and that might, as a next step, at least from the board side, think about how maybe that if there is a committee we put together, if that somehow can be a part of connecting more directly with staff in the building. I don't know if that, I'm just wondering, Dawn, if that's like a vehicle for maybe really exploring like how we can do that.
You mean through the say, can you say it again?
Yeah, well, we were talking about I know it's on the agenda somewhere about whether we should be forming a policy governance committee to really talk about how we're the effectiveness in essence of what we're doing as a board and following, that governance. And I always think this highlights for me sort of that gap in our linkage to the staff. And here's the board and here's the staff. And can that committee explore how to bridge that communication gap at a more detailed level that we really sometimes really don't have time to do, obviously at every board meeting.
It could come through that committee because it would follow under engagement. It could also, I mean, it could also be a part of the community engagement because it is a form of engagement as well. So it has the potential to be that in those two parts. I see Samantha has her hand up.
Yeah, and I don't know. I personally would feel comfortable asking Elizabeth and Dawn to maybe have a conversation to suggest possible dates if we were to go forward with quarterly. And we've already brainstormed a number of topics, and perhaps the two of them could identify a few topics and go from there, report back to the school board and the association, as well as all the other staff where we are. Would that be it? Am I missing something important?
No, I don't think you're missing. And Krista and I worked with Elizabeth and Sarah to kind of set up this structure. So, and I did hear another person mention a small working group, and maybe there needs to be a little more fine tuning to get us to the smooth next steps, maybe. Let's hear from, there's still more hands. So Brad.
Yeah, I just want to follow what Sandy was saying. We are talking about perhaps having a committee structure with it on the board, and we're also talking about having a communications committee. So as opposed to a governance committee, could be part one thing a communications committee of the board could undertake.
Okay. All right. Steve.
I was just thinking that if we're going to have any kind of a working group or a small focus group or a committee or whatever, that I don't think it should be just the board and the staff. I think there needs to be an administrative representative.
Oh, I did believe Patrick did attend those meetings. So
yeah,
Patrick was.
I mean, we want this to be a full open conversation between everybody, and
yeah,
there should be no reason to exclude anybody.
Yep. Kristen.
So I think one important thing is that this isn't just happening for the board. I mean, one thing we heard in our group was, as everyone knows, feeling heard is important, and being heard, not just feeling heard, but being heard. And so I would think this touches on a lot of areas, but putting it more towards community engagement, and then somehow linking it, to the ends, but that having the community engagement part be the focus and not some wonky thing.
Okay, Sarah Mangini.
As we plan what type of format to do and what topics should be on, what topics should be covered by a certain meeting, I don't want, they say the devil is in the details. I don't want planning I don't want planning to cause, it's more important for communication to happen, even if it's informal, in small work groups such as we had today. I heard a lot of positive things come out of small groups, and it sounded like people really welcomed the opportunity to talk 2-on-2 or 3-on-3. I'd rather let the conversations happen, even if they're not perfectly planned, than to delay because we're trying to plan the perfect format, if that makes sense.
Steve?
Yeah, and that's why I think it's kind of a variable agenda meeting might be good, that you could start out with an open table discussion. Anybody could bring up whatever's on their mind, really, and then, but at least have some focused points that people know, are pressing, that people want to get to and maybe have done some homework on.
I'm wondering, because we have 2 minutes left, if we might consider having Don and Elizabeth and I and Patrick get together, perhaps and Sarah, I think, was part of that conversation as well. But maybe if there are 1 or 2 other folks that want to be part of that group, to just nail down some dates and some, that if everybody here is okay with us starting with that. Patty, I see your hand up, so feel free to jump in.
I just had one idea that popped in my brain. I think I hear, I know sorry, I'm trying to say this quickly. I know that there's public comment in every agenda, and I appreciate that. However, I feel like that's not quite the essence of what is the goal here, because I know teachers know that they have that if they really feel like they need to bring something. But I think what was really valuable tonight was not presenting to a huge group, was to have these sort of smaller, more intimate conversations. And I wonder if that could be part of the agenda. I hope I'm being clear. I think that almost if on every agenda there was the public comment, but also a little carved out time for a meeting like we had tonight, where we had breakout rooms. I think you'd get more information, and I think it'd be more productive.
Kristen.
And I'm just concerned about Don and Krista, that they always are the heads of all these things, in the sense of, I don't know how they can do their lives and the board. And before we were a combined board, people that weren't the chairs were in charge of some of these things. And I think that that's good for many reasons. A, people don't have too much to do. And B, and I'm going to use this word and I don't exactly mean it, the power gets spread out, or the influence gets spread out on board members. And I'm not thinking anyone has too much influence. That's not something I'm saying. But, do Dawn and Krista have to be the ones to do this and the other thing and the other thing and the other thing? I just think it's important, and we need to have that as a board discussion, that we need to spread out who does what. And the chair and the vice chair don't have to head everything. Now, maybe this makes sense because you've already been in discussions with Elizabeth, but I think we as a board need to look at that and not have just 2 people in charge of everything, or every group, or every And I guess that's not exactly true with the merger study committee, but and we can have a discussion about that later as a board, but I think it's important to not overtax people and spread things out.
Steve?
I totally agree with that sentiment. And I think I think somebody needs to get it started. You guys are the most likely to just get the ball rolling, but I think it could be delegated pretty quickly to another group of folks, another committee, as Sandra was mentioning, or the community engagement. Well, that throws it right back in Krista's lap. But you know, it could even be a different committee. We could even just at least designate some folks to have this conversation outside of the normal leaders. And just to Patty's point, I wasn't really suggesting a public comment period in these meetings. I think public comment is a very formal board function that happens because of state law, and it's very restrictive and it's very annoying to most people because it's not really a dialogue. I'm really suggesting that there be an open dialogue at the beginning of these meetings. It's just really free conversation.
Elizabeth?
I would just say too, I think it seems like we're going towards this idea of developing like some small working group to kind of, set the date, move us along. And, we're totally open to, if Krista and Don want to shift it, and you guys as a board, choose a couple other people to do it. And, we might even do the same because I do a lot of the meetings too. And so, that could, but I just wanted to say, I think that's, a good plan. But, and I would definitely just take a role in making sure that, we go to that next step. And I think it just could be a good way of, just advancing and trying to do it efficiently by setting a date and getting a group together.
I wonder if we could commit, Don, to getting some folks to step into that role from the board, whomever's interested, by our next board meeting. So at least we know we are a group that's identified, that, and the staff can do the same. And so we're leaving this meeting knowing that by the end of the month we'll have at least some people identified to try to move the conversation forward.
So that falls on, that has its limitations, setting that up right now, because we have turnover or anticipated turnover chance, that could be happening. So we could take a straw poll of board members to see there might be some interest.
Mm-hmm. Or maybe even people can get back to you.
Yep, that's fine if they want to
email in the next couple of days or so.
Yep.
I think that would be great if you guys want to do that, and we'll do the same, and then we can. But I will reach out probably to Krista or Don, or you could reach out to me, and we can just figure out who is that group going to be, and then they can get together. Seems like a good step.
Okay.
All right. Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Really appreciate this. Thank you.
Thank you. I can
stop. If you can stop screen sharing.
There we go.
Then we can see everybody. Can't see who's here. I still can't do anything. You got to stop screen. Is it? What's going on?
I did.
Okay. I'm still frozen.
All
right.
I do see, I think everybody's back here. Christy Sumner has her hand up.
Yeah. So we have a 8:45 commitment with board council. And so I just want to make board members aware we paused that other part of the agenda, but we have 8:45 to deal with board council. Okay. Christy, do you have?
I didn't know if you were having public comment at the end of this section of your meeting.
I need to check back with the board and see what their plan is.
Recording in progress.
Gone.
Aren't we lucky?
Wow, this is fun. It's like completely rearranging.
Oh wait, here they come. All right, they're coming
I
back.
keep getting bumped. I'm sorry. I'm not going to be host anymore.
Welcome back, everybody.
Oh my gosh. Sorry. I think it's my fault. I keep getting bumped off.
No, a bunch of people did. Like there were
Oh,
three
really?
of us left, and we're not going to tell the dirty joke that we told.
Who has the most stable internet that I can make host? Because I don't think it's me.
I think it's a group thing because we just we lose big bunches. I don't think it's any, it might be Zoom for all I know.
Yeah.
Okay, so 8:45, we have to be in executive session. We have a lot of other stuff that we still have to finish. We can go into executive session and come out and finish the rest of our work. We can take public comment now, go into executive session, finish the rest of our work. What do you want to do?
I would say go do public comment now so people don't have to hang out and then go watch the Olympics or whatever. And have a glass of wine. I don't know what people do, but could we do that now?
I agree.
We could. Steve?
Have wine now?
I agree.
Yeah, I think we should take public comment. I also think that this discussion with Nate, although it was a great format, I think it was way too rushed and about Nate's stuff. And I think I really would like to have a meeting that we just put everything else off to the side to talk about that topic, including these action items that are on this agenda. Trying to shovel them into this meeting has been really a brain cramp for me.
Yeah, I agree with Steve.
Okay, what about the rest of you? It sounds like Steve's proposing that we table the rest of the Nate discussion and the 2 action items. Is that the feeling of the other board members?
I mean, if we have time to put it on another meeting at some point, I know they're all jammed, but
they are all jammed.
Was my question is when do we pick it back up?
Right. So our next meeting is scheduled at the completion of the annual meeting. So we have no control on how long that meeting goes and when it'll start or end. So when it ends, then we would have to go into already a partially built agenda. I'm not sure that thinking about what's on there that it would be strictly the Nate conversation. So
is there a rush?
Well, it would be, if we're going to gather information as the actions sort of leaning towards, there isn't a huge rush, but it would be nice to start getting that ball moving. Brad?
Yeah, I hate to suggest another meeting. Sorry, Sarah. But we've put so much time, energy, and money into Nate's report, and to give it short shrift, I think that would be a bad idea. At least that's my opinion.
Okay, Kevin?
Well, I agree with Brad totally, because that was going to be my suggestion that we consider another meeting, and I would also think we should consider doing it within the next 2 weeks.
Okay. All right. Rob?
You guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Sorry. I can never tell with the headphones. Yeah, my thought is I completely agree with what has been said. That being said, also, there will be a finalized report, which we will get at some point. And in a month's time, this board will also look a little different too. So I'm just trying to be thoughtful of both, that we should probably do this sooner or later, but that there'll also be possibly different votes coming down the pike within a month regarding any actions or no actions that we do take. So I'm just thoughtful of that also.
Okay, Sandy?
Thank you, John. I also agree, not, though I'm loath to do it, to set up a meeting. I was looking at next week. I know there's a merger study committee on Tuesday. But so obviously it can't be at the same time, but I do really think that we need to give this discussion like real time now and not wait, if at all possible.
Okay.
I believe that merger study committee, we'll have to confirm, but I believe that merger study committee meeting was canceled.
Oh, okay.
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 All
Good
right.
to know. Mhm.
Liz?
I'm happy with public comment now. I look forward to a good long discussion about the report and the values. And I also, I mean, our action items B and C, I wonder how much thought we do need before we took those actions. And maybe separating out A from B and C could be different for me. But maybe other people want more discussion on those action items, but certainly public comment now makes sense.
Okay. All right. So just to work through our process, I think if we're going to table items, we should table them and get to public comment. So if somebody wants to make a motion to table something, we don't need to discuss it. We can just vote on it and see how it goes.
So I'll make a motion to table items B and C. Is that right? B and C?
Well, we never finished A either, so.
So I'll make a motion to table A, B, and C.
Okay.
Second. Kristen, second.
And all right. All right. Like I said, you don't need to discuss. You can just tell it. Your discussion will be your vote. So all those in favor of tabling the remaining A, B, and C items to the next soonest meeting we can get them in, please give a thumbs up or say aye.
Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 in favor, 10 in favor. And any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, so that one passes. So it's passed to table. Okay. All right, so we'll move down to public comment. Where did Christy go? Oh, there she is. Christy.
Hi.
Hi.
I want to say that I appreciate this format that you've had tonight and the open meeting, including all of the visitors. It's more than I've heard from many board members, and nice to hear staff too. And I appreciate all that you're doing to try to get things working better. I did early on here that I heard Don ask for the board to possibly take a stand on Lincoln withdrawal. And I just want to say I don't think that is appropriate for the board to take up or express. I think it causes division and undermines trust in other aspects of the board work. And that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment?
If I could just clarify, that was a comment from a room. It wasn't Dawn's comment. She was just reading one of the sticky notes. So
I pretty much thought that happened before we even started the rooms.
Nope, that was a sticky note.
Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to put it on you then, Dawn.
Nope. Okay.
Paul.
Thanks, Dawn. It would help to know when board members speak out, whether they're speaking for the board or they're speaking just for themselves. So I'd like that to be explicit on their part. The other thing I'd suggest is that the board not advocate for Lincoln withdrawing one way or the other. And the reason I say that is in statute, there's no role for the board to play. Doesn't prohibit the board from saying anything, but the role for the withdrawal process is really up to Lincoln, the 4 other towns, and the State Board of Education. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And Coco.
I just want to thank you all for letting the public come into the breakout sessions. I think that actually worked out quite well. And I know a lot of folks appreciated the inclusion and being able to hear from board members and the faculty at the schools. So going forward, I think if we do continue to use breakout groups in these larger board meetings, it would be great to always include the public in that. Thank you.
Thank you. Christy, is your hand up from before, or do you have another oh, okay. All right. Okay. Not seeing any more hands. Okay. All right. So we are gonna go into executive session, and Krista, when you come out, do you want to do a quick update on community engagement, or are you gonna, where did you go?
I'm here. I mean,
sorry.
yeah, I don't have anything big to report. We had good conversation, but we're not taking any specific action right now. So.
Okay, we'll consider that the update then.
Okay.
All right. All right. So we need to go into executive session under Title I VSA 5313A3, the evaluation of an employee. We're going to invite Dina, our board counsel, in with us. And I think that's all we need, right? I think so. Okay, so is there somebody willing to make that motion at 8:48?
So moved, Steve.
Steve, is there a second? Was that Andrew?
I'll second Andrew. Yeah.
All right, all those in favor of going into executive session under Title I VSA 5313A3, evaluation of an employee, please say aye.
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 Any
Aye.
opposed? Any abstentions? All right, so we're going in. So there's another link in an email for board members. So that'll be the link to use to get into executive session.
Don, I just want to check. I think I resumed host privileges when I rejoined.
Okay.
If I were to leave, I think it ends the meeting. I can hand host privileges back, or I don't know if you're okay with the meeting ending. Just wanted to check there.
Well, if I'm going to go into another meeting, I'm going to end it. So you'd have to give it to somebody who's still going to sit in the room.
Well, is there
Is
anything we need to do when we come back? Doesn't sound like it.
We have to adjourn in public session. So,
Can we be in both places, Dawn? Can I just stay here and then join your link separate?
I don't know that you can. Wait, did Sean just?
Oh, you're
stay?
right. You're right.
Okay. Okay, so you make a Sean host, and then we'll come back when we're done and adjourn right there.
Perfect.
All right. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Sean.
Thanks, Sean.